Okay, it is 7:02. We'll call the meeting to order. Jerry, you have the roll call by who's online. Now, I think we were supposed to do the minutes from the 18th from our last meeting. So has everybody had the chance to look at those? I guess I need a motion to approve those minutes from the 18th of February.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, second by Danny?
Sure.
Okay. Any discussion? Any abstentions? Any no thank yous? Any yeses?
Here.
Aye.
I knew I'd get there eventually. I've been trying to take notes from all these other meetings we go to. I don't do it as well as they do. So that's all yeses from the people on the board. I see Jim Southers is on board. I don't know how he votes, Jerry.
I voted aye.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I don't believe we have anybody from the public, so no public comment. Our new business tonight is to discuss actions of the ATF and organizing and community support and recommendations.
So what this was related to, Frank, is that we have the public meeting coming up and beginning to, inform the public and, encourage people to have their voices heard in town at, like I say, the budget meeting on March 25th, and, kind of moving forward with getting people organized to get behind, getting the discussion going. I guess in terms of the folks on the Groton Conservation Advocates, at least it's getting attention, and people are at least a few people are talking about it. So, but yes, how does the task force want to move forward with trying to arrange for public support of our efforts?
Jerry, did we put together I don't remember now, like a one-page piece of paper, so I actually had a thought about, I could spend a little bit of time in the early afternoons because I'm usually done by 3 or 4 o'clock. Going to some of the high school events that are local, because I know that, and just I'll pass out flyers. I mean, just that one page, maybe that we were going to put together. I don't remember whether it actually happened or not, Jerry, to be honest with you.
That has not happened. The best thing that we have is the web page that's out there with the information from the task force. So it hasn't been put into like a one-page kind of hard copy kind of thing, but we do have the web page, and I think I can probably share that. It's kind of I guess if you follow the breadcrumbs here, it's on the Groton's homepage, departments, Parks and Rec, Planning and Projects, and then you go to the Athletic Field Task Force. And it has, I guess, just a get involved. So I think we added that since the last meeting, but the summary of the findings, Fish High School, it's not quite a one-pager. It's probably a bit more, but this is kind of what's out there right now. And I have full ability to update this with any kind of new information. So, or additional information that's not out there. Yeah, and I guess, do we want to create that one pager? And if we do, let's get the information and let's make it happen. And I guess then the next discussion is how do you get that out there? But yeah, I guess so. I'm open for discussion on.
So it didn't happen yet, but I did write a letter to the editor for the day. So I sent it in late last week. It has not been in the paper yet. They didn't tell me that it would or wouldn't be. They said it would be reviewed. So whatever that means. But once that is reviewed, I could just take that. I would take my original draft, which was a little longer. I had to cut out a couple, it's supposed to be 200 words and mine was 275 or something like that. So I took some of the stuff out in the middle, but I could send that to you, my original draft, and we could add it to that. I mean, I could make copies of it. I mean, I don't know. My thought was I could just, because I think that being not a full-fledged coach, some of the positions that our task force meet, I mean, I could just show up and go to a track meet and pass out flyers. I don't want to, I mean, it sounds kind of, but I mean, we just need to get the word out about what we're trying to do. And it has, and on the op-ed, it kind of just, it was just an overview of what we've been doing. And on the very bottom, it had the website to that link that Jerry just pulled up. And it was more of an informational piece of that I wrote. It was, this is what we're doing. This is where we are. Here's a link, we need your help kind of thing.
I know Vin and I are planning to have our spring sports, outdoor sports, and we had discussions with the coaches about at some of their events having concessions, in a limited capacity. And so if we have that flyer, I can definitely pass it out during those events.
Yeah, I invited Dan to my spring coaches meeting a couple of nights ago. So all the spring coaches, as part of our agenda, I had that exact link that Jerry, just that page was linked to the agenda. So I sent it to the coaches a couple of days before the meeting, encouraging them to at least look at it. And then we talked about how it benefited the school, how it would benefit the schools, and to help get the word out on it. But as you know, we have not had any events where people could attend yet. Now that will change this spring. So as far as Frank, you just said, go to athletic events and get the word out, or go to school events. There really haven't been any school events. So
well, not with spectators.
Shortly.
I'll go out in the car. I'll pass them out to the cars out there.
Yeah, when they pick up the kids after the thing is over.
Well, could we just do, what about just an email blast to either all athletic families? I don't know, Vin, if that's like a list that's easy to send it to, as opposed to, I'm just thinking of email gets out the best information. And if we really need support by the 25th, which is, a week away, do we try to either do it through athletics at the high school, or do we do a whole blast to, through the superintendent, urging them to go look at the link or something like that? Or do we just do it to all the youth organizations? I know I could definitely send it out to all my lacrosse families, that have been both active for this year and last year, as well as the last 10 years. And I'm sure Jim could probably do the same for soccer.
Yes.
So that could get to the youth side. And it's just a matter of what are we asking them to do, right? Are we trying to mobilize them to come out and show up, or virtually show up on the 25th and support it, or write letters, or both?
Well, I think a lot of the first question is going to be, well, how's this going to be paid for? So I don't know if people can go, they can support the idea, but I don't know if they can say, yeah, I'm 100% behind this, without knowing how it's going to be funded.
Right.
I think the short-term thing that kind of relates to March 25th, really the only question that we have for the March 25th is whether or not the town council and the RTM will approve funding for $200,000 to do the studies that are going to answer that very question that Vin just said. What's it going to cost, and what are the details? So that's what we need support for right now. We need to fund that CIP project and find the answers to those questions. So, people that support athletic fields in town, they ought to go and say, I support the funding of this study. Please keep it in the budget. Let's find out what it costs and let's move forward with addressing this issue over the next couple of years.
I think it'd be, from the collaboration side, like what I heard from Joe and Chris Connolly when they came, and also Senator Summers, is we need to get the rally behind the people. I do agree that people are going to ask about the cost, and you're talking about the 25th. But I think most of the things that I've researched so far is a grassroots group came together, like a bunch of people, and then they expanded. So they created a website where they got more people to sign up and put their emails on, and made it go from our committee of 10 or 15 to 150 parents, all interested in the idea. We don't know how we're going to fund it, but are driving the force behind, yes, we want better for our fields. That's the number one thing that we need to, the funding is an important piece, but I think you have to have the passion and interest, because if you have the passion and interest, it's not just town funded. There's other funding opportunities once we show, oh my God, here's 500 signatures of folks in the town that really want, we need to create a platform that people can go to sign in and, form that large group where we have the numbers that of people. So I don't think, as we stated, there's no funding, we don't know. So it's not looking for the people to support it based on that, but support the idea. Do you want to see change in the town? Do you want new fields? Yes. And then if you get enough numbers like that, then we can look at it further. And you're talking about that 200. I remember there was money for the football field, but I think us alone is not enough, right? Like we're like 10, 15 people at best. We really need to work towards growing this group into a town-wide, like community gardens is a great community thing where people, grassroots literally, supported that land and they rose up and they made it happen. So how do we form that idea so that when it's all over, like that's how we get people excited. And that's what Ledger did in a lot of towns to get the funding and the support. So thanks.
Jerry, do we suspect that there'll be any groups such as the conservation group that might come forward on the 25th and speak against budgeting the $200,000, or are we just looking to show support for the idea?
I guess, Rich, I'd be surprised if the Groton conservation advocates went there and talked about not approving the $200,000. I mean, in their communication so far is they say they acknowledge the need for fields, they just don't want synthetic. So to me, that's the study will kind of come up with a cost of those things that allow us to kind of answer the question, what does a natural field cost versus what does a synthetic field cost, what is all those kinds of questions. So I'd be surprised if they were against it. But yeah, I think my sense of it is that this is an opportunity for us to begin to motivate people. I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to kind of keep people motivated because, we're talking about athletic fields now, but we're talking about, spending money to plan for fields that might happen in a year or year and a half down the road. And that's a long time to kind of keep people engaged in a process that kind of moves slowly. So, that's probably the biggest struggle I think we're going to have is to continue, is to keep those who are interested, vocal and moving forward and speaking on behalf of it through the doldrums of waiting for, months at a time when nothing seemingly happens.
So let's maybe trying to streamline where we're going. The 25th, is a budget hearing, right? Do we need, and this might be a question for the counselors to see what your kind of personal opinions are. When people show up in front of you advocating for money, should it be a letter, is a letter from our group saying, hey, we support Park and Rec as part of the group, and this is why we asked them to do the money, or is it better for each of us to show up that night and say the exact same thing 10 times and then bring in other people to say the same thing on top of that. I can definitely see there are going to be times when we want to mobilize a lot of people. I just don't know, is the 25th one of those, or is a couple of letters sufficient?
I can't speak for the whole council. Oop, can you hear me?
Right, no, it's more just what are your, if you sitting there, what influences you?
Yeah, I think it's great when people come out and speak. I think the numbers and the volumes speak volumes. I think letters sent into the council is huge. I think, I also think when you present, here's our committee that's made up of 1,000 people really interested in seeing this go forward just to start the investigation process. Now I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people. Like we need more numbers of people willing to say they support the concept. Doesn't have to be the financial, the concept of the idea to research and improve our fields. Because what is going to make this study stand out any more than any of the other studies in the town that have gone nowhere, that people have funded and those fields never happened or things. So now how do you know what I mean? There's going to be the people who say, well, another study, how much is that going to cost? We have studies done and nothing ever came of them. Another wasted study. But when you have a study that you're going for and you actually have a ton of people behind it, now that's a study that one can say, wow, look, there's some momentum. And there's going to be a funding base behind that when you have that many people pulling. So that's my personal thought. But I think anything at this point in the time, the 20 something is not too far away. But I do think we need to grow our support base of the concept, not the financial plan presented.
Jerry, I'm going. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do you think it would be possible maybe for this particular meeting, maybe we ask so for myself representing Groton Soccer Club, could write a letter on behalf of Groton Soccer Club to say that we have the support of our, X hundred members who are looking, to have, better access to fields. We could ask the same thing for a lot of the other youth things, like Chad had said. Chad could do something maybe on behalf of lacrosse. So maybe just get all of those sort of letters, and maybe that gives us 10, 12 letters that represent, probably multiple thousands of participants across Groton. And maybe that would help and streamline the process, at least for this question of just getting the study underway. And then we continue to grow the groundswell as we get towards a potential referendum, et cetera, where we're going to really need people to come out and support.
Frank, I just want to let you know, Rachel's got her hand up.
Oh. Hi, Rachel. Why don't you go ahead and speak? Sorry.
So I know at the budget meetings, when the community comes out and speaks, if they come out in large numbers, it does make an impact. I don't foresee a lot of pushback on this study. I just don't personally see it on the council. I think they may want a study to figure out how to go forward. And but I will say in the future, to get funding for these fields or how to go forward, you will want the soccer club to send a letter, but you want the soccer club and everybody in the soccer club to show up at those meetings, that budget meeting. Because I will tell you, when the library shows up, and they show up with sometimes like 50 people, and you sit there and it's the same people talking the same thing, but you listen and you really feel the impact that a library makes on your community. So you want that kind of numbers showing up in the future to actually fund some of the actual fields. And so that's I would say, yeah, work towards that. But thank you. And sorry I haven't been here in a while. I've had a lot going on.
Frank, can you see hands when they're raised?
I can now.
Okay.
Bruce has his hand up.
Go.
I do, thanks.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask about the $200,000 for the consultants, and just from my experience on the council, I was always a big no consultant person and spending that kind of money on consultants, and would imagine there's going to be some pushback, and just wondering where that number came from and what it's going to entail doing, because it's a lot of money for a study. And I'm wondering, my tact always was that, how much of it can we do? like the staff do, and why do we need to go out and get this done? And that was when it was like $50,000. So 200,000 is a lot of money for consultants to do a study. So, and especially if they're going to kind of recreate kind of what Chad and what the committee has done already, I think it should definitely, we should have our information together and be able to explain it really well, because it's ripe for getting cut if they need to cut things. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bruce. And I think when we say it's a study, I guess that's that's partially true and partially inadequate. And Chad, feel free to jump in here, but we're talking about actually going out and doing physical surveys of land, studying the land in that way. Where exactly can we put these fields, and conceptual design. There is stuff about architectural fees for designing the amenities that go along with the fields. And help me out, Chad. What else am I missing on that?
Yeah, so Bruce, basically, because we do this, Park and Rec asked us kind of what is a typical, how much would this cost? If we go out to a public RFP, what should they be expected that might come in? And basically what we looked at and said, well, if you were just designing one field and the amenities, it's going to be X number of dollars, right? And so then you multiply that by how many fields that right now are in discussion. You add the 3 different properties and the surveys that need to be done, the geotech investigations that need to be done, the architects to bring in to look at what kind of buildings and where. So and then we just kind of ballparked it to say it's probably in that ballpark, right? So that's where that 200,000 came from. It's basically a concept design plan for all of the fields right now that the task force is looking at. How do they get arranged on the site? Can it work? Can it not work? What sizes are the fields? So that really, and then at the end of the day, a cost estimate. So that at the end of the day, they're not construction level plans, right? This is, if you think about like the school projects, the first piece that everybody did was like the concept plans of each school. And then there was a cost estimate that went along with them. And that got them to the point of, now we know what these schools are going to cost and we can go out to referendum. And that's kind of the same way this would go, where you do a study, do the plans so that you get them to a point to where you know what's going to fit, how much work is involved, and you can put a pretty good cost estimate on it. So then you know what the real ask is of the town. So, and to answer your question, can the town do it? No, is a short answer. We have a very talented staff in town, but you need somebody that designs athletic fields, that designs buildings, on a daily basis, that's familiar with it, can do the cost estimates. The staff, even in the engineering, they just don't do that, right? They're on a daily basis, they're not designing fields, just like we don't have staff try to design the schools. So that's kind of, it should be done by somebody. It should go out to, proposals from the general population or the general professional public to be able to bid on it, and give hopefully the town the best value that way. But that's how that number came up with.
Okay, thank you. It's important that I think we have that there for when they try to explain and ask.
Yeah, and there are some other towns that spent significantly more money on that kind of that early phase. So by no means I don't think it's a high number. I think it's being somewhat aggressive.
I think that the point there is that we're not kind of redoing what we just did. We're not doing another needs assessment. We're not doing how many fields do we need. We're not doing any of that, because I think you're right, Bruce. This task force and, Kent Frost and Associates over the years have done a good job of documenting that and quantifying that in a very, I think, complete and understandable way. So not redoing any of the work we've done.
Right. I think that's a good point. I mean, it's really, this committee is the springboard for the next piece, right? Like we've already decided this is how many fields we think we need. This is the types we think we need. These are the places we would like them to go. can they fit? Can they, what's the arrangement going to be? How much are they really going to cost? You know, like when you look at Claude Chester, you know, it's flat, that's great, but how much fill do you need to bring in to get the fields to where they really need to be at Fitch? There's going to be definitely earthwork and grading and buildings and utilities, and you know, so it's getting to the next level of detail is really what the plan is for. And I'm trying to think back. I mean, when we did the Merit fields before the middle school was designed to go there, you know, I think that plan was probably 75,000, if I remember right, for one location. That one, you know, and that was a public RFP. We had geotechs, we had surveyors, we had engineers, you know, to get to that. And that was kind of the same idea, get to a plan that you know how much it's going to cost, then figure out how to pay for it. And unfortunately, you know, 2 weeks after the Park and Rec unveiled the plan, the school unveiled the plan to put a school there. So that didn't happen.
So Jerry, what do we forward to people about the 25th? What is it that we can provide to them that will allow them to, you're on mute, Jerry, just so you know. What can we provide to people to, if they want to call in or, you know, do their thing?
So, yeah, I think just this discussion here tonight has been kind of helpful, I think, in that. I think, you know, just the question that Bruce asked, I think we need to explain that to people, what exactly the $200,000 is going to buy them. And, you know, what work has been done, what work needs to be done, and then, you know, then the big ask will come later. So that's, I think that's a pretty good synopsis, I think, of what we would put in a communication. And I think Jim is correct too, you know, rather than kind of having 50 people show up at the meeting, if we have the Groton Soccer Club, the Groton Falcons Lacrosse, the Little League people, you know, the youth football group, if we have them, you know, the presidents of those leagues write letters in support as representing, you know, however many hundreds of families that they represent. I think, you know, for the purposes of right now, I think that probably is a doable thing, and it's probably, I think, going to be effective. And I'm encouraged by what Rachel and Portia have said about the council kind of being receptive. So I think, you know, like I say, if we can just kind of show that right now, I think we're in good shape. And then in the year to come, moving up to, you know, the millions of dollars, that's when we need to really get those, all the families out and everybody writing their letters and everybody, you know, moving forward. So yeah, I think that's a doable thing, and that's something I can do even starting tomorrow. You know, putting together that email that goes out to those league presidents, asking them to write a letter or to show up at the public meeting and speak on behalf of supporting this budget request, the $200,000 budget request.
Good.
And Portia's got her hand up there.
Yep.
Sorry.
I
Thank you,
agree with
Portia.
that. I think that's a great way. Maybe some of the high school athletic parents from the booster clubs or whatever, possibly. But I do think you don't want to lose ground time. I think having, I'm going to say Facebook, social media platform, which Rachel's always been good at, like helping get things out. So she would be, I'm not going to volunteer, but I'm going to semi-ask volunteer if she was interested. If we could get a graphic together or agree on something and put, you know, like this page, if you're in support of, you know, moving forward with the idea that we need field improvement. And here's a link, and on there you can have a thing where people can put their names and also look at the progress, like please send a letter to the council and support the first plan of possibly a 200, you know, CIP to move forward to just come up and find out what we need. Like, I think we don't want to lose. So the 50 or 100 people that you guys reach, or 1,000 you reach by just these clubs, a couple of people asked me, they're like, where do I direct my information and start like following the progress? We have nowhere. So I think that would be helpful to have. And then you can put on there, send your concerns to the council or come to the meeting. And that way we're not losing ground and momentum when we're ready to kind of increase further. So if there's a way we could have a platform or a logo or something that people can share, I think we need to kind of start to do that.
So Portia, just to let you know, I'm gonna, Jessica in our office is kind of a Facebook genius as well. So I'm not sure if, I know we do events pages. I'm not sure if there's a cause kind of page or something like that that we might be able to do on our social media. But if we can, we'll do that. And I'm sure we can create a graphic that you're talking about. That's a shareable image or something like that. We can do that. I know that, but whether we can create a special Facebook page where people can comment and stuff, I know the answer to that question.
Yeah. I just think somewhere we can have people start to go to that can be shared on social media and start getting people that want to get involved.
Yep.
Jim?
Once again, maybe there's
I'm sorry.
something where that can't be done through the town side. Maybe it needs to be more grassroots than rec dollars and time doing that. Maybe this is something, that's why I'm saying, maybe there's somebody else in the community that's non-elected, that's a parent or a constituent in the town that wants the grassroots, get a Facebook or a post going, they're allowed to do that. And I think we need to find those people. Yeah.
Right. Jim, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to some of the previous conversation around the letters. And I think the other thing, a large portion of our presentation has been around the high school. And I think it might be important to also see if we could also get some letters or some feedback from the coaches. The fact that we're saying we have to bus folks away from the school, et cetera. Again, I think just continuing that there may be something there. So, then I would default to or defer to you, excuse me, on that, but maybe that's another place that we need to think about to make sure we're just weaving into all of the conversations. It's not just about more fields for athletics or for youth groups. It's also about our high school kids. It's also about the equity piece around not having the proper facilities. It's about access for folks as well with the football stadium, et cetera. We just have to hit all those points, and the more folks that we can have that are advocating for those points, I think the better and stronger our message is going to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, Ben, on that same thought, I was actually thinking of when you sent us the note about the band also, I think, because I don't think people think about that, and the fact that they had opportunities to do things that weren't allowed due to the lack of our fields, our amenities at our high school. So I think the band director would be a great, if we could get something from them.
So just to maybe wrap that point up, this new business point, when I create that, whatever I'm going to send out to the youth sport groups, I'll submit that to you, and maybe you can share that from high school standpoint.
Anyone else? We good? Okay, so down old business, 6.1 was a discussion of the plan of synthetic versus grass fields. I know Jerry had set the note out and what the Groton, I'm sorry, GCA, I forget what it stands for. They're pushing hard for their side of it, but I think a few people have sent emails back to each other about their feelings and their thoughts. Again, I think we're in the struggle to get the 200,000, just get that done, and I think it's premature in the process, but it's just one man's opinion. I don't know how we want to deal with that argument at this point in time, or that discussion. It's not an argument, it's a discussion. any comments from anyone? Jim, I see your hand up. Would you like to go?
Sure. I agree with you that I think it's probably premature. I think also just personal opinion from reading the comments, I'm not sure that there's a discussion that they're looking for. It seems more of this is our facts-based opinion and you need to accept it. So I think we're not going to have a fruitful conversation at this point in the venture. I think we should, to your point, focus on getting the rest of our study underway. And then from there, we start to build the case and we come back with additional information that shows the other side of the coin. So I think that's our best path. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Portia?
Yeah, I know that that organization did come to the council, and then they just were at the RTM, I think, of maybe a meeting ago. Maybe Bruce will remember, but if I remember correctly, I believe Representative Bruce did state that they should come to our committee and speak to us about their concerns. They went to the council and they went to the RTM. And I could agree with that point. I watched that meeting that night. So maybe we extend our hand and say, would you like to come speak to us and present to our committee where we would like to address you about your concerns? I don't know when that should happen, but this is under the old business section, but I think they haven't come to us yet. So let's invite them and discuss, have an open forum of discussion about it. I mean, that's just my thought, but we have yet to have a presentation from them directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Portia. Rachel?
Thank you. I have a different viewpoint on that. As I have stated at the council, your group is an arm of the government and you are who the council should seek advice from. If they want conservation information, the council should request that from the conservation committee. They, I believe, should be considered similar to citizens of our community. And if they want to come and speak and they have issues, I think that there should be a portion in the beginning of the meeting where they have some time where we could take on citizens' comments. And I do know that they have attended the meetings. I have witnessed where Jerry has acknowledged them and asked them if they wanted to contribute anything. And I do recall them saying, no, not at this time, we're good. So they have had opportunities to speak here and they have chosen not to. I look at them maybe in a different viewpoint because I just from my viewpoint on the council is, and I have stated it publicly, they are lobbyists and they have their agenda and it's one-sided. And I would just rather have this group investigate it, look locally, find things like I listened to Representative Black at the RTM when he spoke as a citizen and look at what's happening locally here and what our surrounding communities are doing and what have they done with their investigations on these matters, and when they've had to replace it, what have they done and how did it all work out? And that's the information I think this group should look at. And because I don't think looking at Pennsylvania or Ohio may be helpful as to what happens here, but I think they should be looked upon as citizens and not given any special treatment any differently. That's my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Chad, you had your hand up as well?
Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna probably be right there in between, where I agree with both of you. I was when they first kind of started voicing their opinions as a political action committee, my first thought was, this is not a political process. This wants to be more of a democratic process. We were reaching out to all the groups that use it, and I thought that should stay that way. Then seeing kind of the political stance that they took by just following us around town, giving counter presentations right after us, would not surprise me if they try to get to the Board of Ed shortly, since we just gave that presentation also. But what I feel is a vast disservice to the community is that I think a lot of the information they present is very one-sided. I have a lot of issues with some of the facts that they present, and it's very alarming, right? And I myself, there were some studies that they quoted that I hadn't seen before, and I went digging And what they're claiming kind of those studies mean, I don't necessarily get the same takeaway at the end of the study that they're representing. So I think they need to be heard. As I put in my email to all of you, I'm fine to hear them just like any other group at this point. It doesn't mean I think we negotiate with them. By no means would I want to listen to every youth group sports in the town and come up with a decision that represents all of their wishes and then like negotiate 50-50 that way. I don't think that weight is right. But I also don't want, the incorrect information getting around town that spoils the water, spoils the well. So I feel like somehow we need to clarify that information, and whether that's just in another presentation to the council. Like, we did agree to go back to the council. They asked us to do more information. And so if that's just all we do is go back and present that new information, because I do tend to agree with Jim also that I don't know how much of a discussion we're really going to have if we invite them in. And I think they're citizens. They can come in. They're free to come in whenever they want. And I really wish they would have come to us first and give those presentations. I just think it's totally disingenuous to go the political route. I don't know how good the discussion will be, but I would like to get the record a little bit straightened out, because it's a little bit, from my opinion, it just was kind of fear mongering. There's a lot of stuff being put out there just to scare the public. And when you watch that presentation, it makes you kind of second guess everything. So I think we need to clarify that.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.
Bruce Flax.
Thanks, Frank. So yeah, just so I think that their tactics are a little underhanded. I think that their presentation it's not even fair to call them one-sided. They are a bunch of information taken from different areas and all thrown into one, and it's a mishmash that they're trying to prove a point to. And I think that Councilor Franco is correct, and with regards to their political action, and they behave like one. And I was going through thinking, I think talking to them as a citizen is fine. I think that trying to have a conversation with them through our committee, initiated by us, would be. I think it will probably, there's no way we're going to change their mind that I see, and so I think to let them stand alone on their own, presenting their stuff, and is probably the best way to go, and not give them as much unless they came to us and wanted to speak. Then I would accept them. But I think that one of the things that was troubling to me was, and not the counselors who are on now, but there were some counselors who were buying it like lock, stock, and barrel, and were like, oh my God, the thing, and they were going, so that's the kind of people I'm worried about. Is when they take that like the environmental issues to an extreme without listening to both sides. So that's what my concern is that I felt that it was, the reason I wanted to speak up was because I felt like they were hijacking the narrative to a direction that was unfair to the committee. I'm not sure the right way to approach it, but I think if they wanted to talk to us, to let them. But it's not like the council or the RTM invited them to speak. They went to those bodies and said, "Can we speak?" So they don't need to have an invitation from us. If they want to come speak to us, we should allow them to. But they need to, they need to do it. So I guess what I'm saying is kind of keeping our course and keeping on the track of responding to the council to say we are going to address it in whatever way we want to address it further, and then going about our business is probably the best way to deal with it, I think. Thanks.
Sorry, Jim.
Thanks. Just to continue to sort of that line of thought as well. I don't think we necessarily are, have to think about convincing them. I think you're right. We're not going to change their minds, but I think we focus our attention on the consensus building with our citizens, and that's where we're going to get the win. I think that's what we heard from our representatives that came and talked to us, that the way that we get this through is through that consensus building. To all the points as well. While I don't know that the discussion would be fruitful, I would be open to the idea of allowing them to speak. But again, we don't want to give that, like what everyone else has said, we don't want to give it additional weight. We also know what their points are now. We know what they've come to us with because they've documented those points. And I think we have a role to just counterpoint each of those with the facts that show the other side, right? I mean, every scientific part of being a scientist, right, is the fact that people don't always agree. And you have a hypothesis, you run an experiment, and you get results. And it's the same thing here with a lot of these studies. So for every one study that says it's bad, there's another study that says it's fine. So how do we show the balance of that? And then folks, it's like anything else, it's a risk benefit. And we think the benefits outweigh any potential risk. And I think that's what we have to show. But not now, just down the road as we get more closer to the actual build and the referendum, et cetera. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Danny Lee?
Well, I'm in the same opinion as Bruce and Jim, and I was just wondering, should we make a motion on whether we invite them or just wait for them to ask to be invited? That's it. Should we make a motion for that?
I mean, if we have a consensus of folks who think that we should invite them, I don't know that we have to have a vote, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Frank, what do you think?
I don't know the answer, that's for sure.
How many?
I think, Danny, I think the short answer, just to try to answer your question, I think you could make a motion to do one or the other of those things. Whether that's necessary or not, that's kind of a question for the group. So, if somebody decides to make a motion, and then if there's somebody who seconds it and you discuss it, it may pass, it may not. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, can we hold for 1 second? Coach Costa has his hand up. Let's see what his.
I was just going to say, if Danny made the motion, I would second your motion, Danny. So
I would like to make a motion then.
I would second it.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we have a vote on waiting for them to contact us versus us reaching out to them.
I think, Danny, what your motion would say you would make a motion to either invite them or make a motion to not invite them. So
okay,
it's either one or the other.
I would make a motion to not invite them.
Okay.
I second his motion.
Do we have any further discussion?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Portia.
I was going to say, I'm probably going to abstain. I don't like voting on saying, I'm all like about freedom and transparency and being able to talk no matter. So I agree that we probably should invite them, but I'm kind of down the middle. So I'm probably going to abstain and say, I just don't see the purpose of voting on that. If they come, they come. We kind of have a consensus that we're not going to extend the hand and invite them.
Yeah, they can come.
Oh, someone's TV. I'll probably just abstain.
Thank you, Portia. Ben?
I was just going to say, when you say a motion to invite them, we mean at this time, at the place where we are now. Because like maybe it's, we've had talks about listening to them or when it becomes more pertinent to listen to them. So I don't know if Danny's motion needs to be, as far as
I was talking about the present. It seems like we were talking about the present.
Okay, to invite them right now to attend a meeting. Is that what your motion is?
Did it freeze up?
Yeah, kind of. There you go.
It seemed to freeze up. I was talking about the present.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to listening to them, but do we need to listen to them right now? I would agree, probably not, is kind of my point.
Chad?
Yeah, so my only thought is, I just don't like the idea of voting to not invite somebody. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's a negative tack. Or I'm totally open for them to invite, they're welcome to come in. We don't need to invite them to come in. And so that's where it just feels like if I was a member of the public and I saw a vote that we took to vote to not invite them, sounds like we're not welcoming them in at all. So that's my
I
only
think that's a good
concern
point.
with that kind of a motion versus if it was, a motion to welcome them if they ask or something like that. I think it accomplishes the same thing, but doesn't sound
Negative.
selfish. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Chad. Rachel?
Thank you. I think this is sort of goes in line with if we could just have it, not making an actual motion and having a vote and putting people on record as to whether they want to invite or not invite somebody to a group. It's just sort of a consensus to say, we're just going to keep moving forward and just not put out an invite. I mean, that can be just a consensus and a move forward thing, and it doesn't have such a negative connotation attached to it. So I would also be in favor of more of a consensus just to go forward. And honestly, like you've all said, they can come. I would prefer them to be able to just speak at the beginning, have so much time period, and then that's it. And I don't think they should have a seat with this body to have a full discussion on it at all the time, but they I think can be able to show up and speak and make a presentation. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
So,
Anybody else? Go ahead, Jerry.
so Frank, I'm not like a expert in Robert's Rules of Orders, but there is a motion to not extend an invitation at this point to the Groton Conservation Advocates, and it was seconded. So I think there's either two things that you could potentially do at this point. I think one would be to actually vote on that after discussion finishes, or I believe if the motion, the person who made the motion and the person who seconded kind of rescind their whatever, we can kind of strike it from the official public record here.
Okay, I would rescind it because I don't want that to be a negative connotation in the public record.
And I'll go along with Danny.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Rich. Thank you, Jerry.
So I think.
Okay, so
There's a hand up there.
oh, sorry. I was reading my notes. Go ahead, Chad. Chad?
Sorry. So, well, what I was going to say is I just think we should, on this topic line, I think we should chart a course of action, or, like we have promised to come back to the council. I think we need to assemble the information, and whether that's counterpoints to the presentation we've seen, but I think we need to assemble that information and be ready to go back, in the somewhat foreseeable future. Like, so, get to the point to where we can tell the council, hey, we've done our homework, and we'd like to come back and present that to you. So I just think we should have a path forward of what that's going to be. Thanks.
Councilor Bordelin?
Yeah, I can agree with Chad. I also think that, we need to just also have it be known that, I'll speak for myself, for me, I'm for fields, if they end up being all natural fields, like I still think we have a fields problem, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. So the research that we were tasked with to bring back to the council, one or the other, that's great, but I think we don't want to lose in that right now too much. We need to get the people rallied around. Do you think Groton needs our fields improved? And then later, once we get this big number of people, then you start breaking down into what they want, how it's going to cost and all that. But I think for what Chad was stating about the difference in the fields, we just need fields. At the end of the day, for me, like turf, grass, something, space, like we can caveat it later, but the need is the need. I don't want to lose the need, is what I'm trying to say. However we present to the council, the need, it needs to be loud and clear. That's what I'm hoping. Not
Right.
necessarily the materials or the lack of materials or the environment at this point in time. I have my own thoughts on all of those, but we can't even find the funding to just get the fields done, no matter what they are. Like,
Right.
like, I don't know, just don't want to get lost on that is all. So I just don't want people to join and support fields, and then it doesn't become a turf, and then they're all like, oh, forget it, then we're not going to have any. We still need that push to move forward to keep doing fields. So,
So,
anyway.
Frank,
Thank
I'm just going to jump in here. Jim has his hand up, but I believe he needs to leave in a couple of minutes. So you might want to let him speak.
Oh. Okay, go right ahead, Jim.
Yeah, no, I echo what Councilor Bordelon said. The one thing I will say though is we've done the research that suggests that if we go natural turf, we need more fields, which means more money, which means more space. So there is a bit of a rationale for why, and I think while I agree that we don't want to get caught up in that nuance right now, it's a reality as we start to look towards funding. So we can't lose sight of that, I guess was what I wanted to make sure to say and state. And I apologize, but I've been asked to join a work meeting this evening, so I'm going to have to sign off in a couple of minutes. But thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Coach Costa?
I do think there's been somewhat of a misrepresentation. Our plan is not all, it's a combination of synthetic and natural fields. I mean, that's our solution. I mean, I think it's been misrepresented as being, that we wanted to put in 100% of synthetic turf, while that is not the plan. There's a lot of other things that are part of the plan. I think that as Chad was saying, when we do go back to the council, I think we need to emphasize that part of the plan, that there's obviously the amenities and there's renovations and there's building of new fields, but I don't think we were advocating for 100% synthetic. And I think that the conservation group sometimes was misrepresenting that was our plan.
Thank you, Rich. Rachel, you have your hand up?
Yes. So when I was at the council and I asked to have this sent to the task force, I believe my wording was at the appropriate time. So I don't know if this is something that you even have to work on right now. I think it would be more important to worry about the study and things of that nature. And this could come later, because I mean, when the study happens, probably questions I'm going to be asking about the study are, will you be looking at funding or the pricing, whether it's, synthetic or whether it's turf? I mean, or if you plan on putting one synthetic right here at the high school, and later on in the decision process, it's going to be grass. Now we need two fields. Where is that other field going to go? I mean, so when you do the study, I mean, it's pretty comprehensive of how you're going to sort of do it. But the synthetic doesn't have to be done at the moment unless you want to work on doing it at this moment. And I would work on trying to find more local information and how, like I said earlier, surrounding towns and how they deal with these things and what they've done and how they've researched it and those things. Because I also have a kid that plays on synthetic turf and plays on grass, and I have my own personal opinion. And I will tell you, like, if it's chrome rubber, I don't want my kid on it. But I don't even think that they're using that anymore. And I think that's one of those things that people have said that's really bad, and we don't want that kind of thing. But when you're using sand, it's a different connotation, and I'm not hearing those negative things. But that's sort of the research. But do you have to do that now? Right. Is it premature? Or is it important before the study happens to say, we're going to go forward with synthetic as our recommendation, so we're going to put that in the study, or we're going to go towards grass because, after we've researched all this, that is right. And because I'm not making a decision as to say just because they came and spoke, they're wrong. I don't like their presentation and how they took care of it. But there is a debate on synthetic versus turf. There is a debate to be had, and for you guys to come up with some kind of recommendation. But then that also plays into the study. So it's up to you guys. Thanks.
No other hands up at this moment. So any final thoughts on the next step in that process? What do we think? I don't, personal opinion is, I said it a month ago, it's way too early to be dealing with that. I think the study takes care of that. I think that's what part of its mission is to determine things like that. And the fact that, you know, we've already kind of learned through the process on cost associated with all grass fields versus, you know, some number of a synthetic field or 2 synthetic fields or whatever it may be. And I think all that will be borne out in the study. I mean, we can start doing our due diligence and we can start counterpointing on the side or start working on it, but I mean, I think we're more concerned about getting funding to go forward. I mean, I think that's really the focus. I know that is a week from now, but I mean, and I know that what we're talking about is probably, you know, a 2 or 3 month thing. But I think my focus would be now is to get word on the street to, on the 25th, let people know that we really want to have this study done. And I think everyone, we haven't spoken to anyone who didn't think this was a good idea. Never mind the type of field, the fields, as Portia said, the fields. We need the fields. So just one man's opinion. Any other thoughts? We kind of have left it open-ended, I think.
I think Portia's got her hand up.
Yeah, I agree with you, Frank.
Oh, sorry, Portia. Thanks.
That's okay. No, don't need to be sorry. I think it's just numbers right now. I think we need the numbers. We heard the state, you know, people speak that came out, the representatives, the senator. We need to show that we have a lot of people that want it, and we got to figure out a way to grab that. Having a few athletic people, sports teams come forward with names first is great, but look at the big picture. You know, neighbors, people who don't have kids in the school, taxpayers, like just the whole community at large. I know my son's on marching band. I mean, I can start talking to some of his friends' parents. Like, we need to find a place to send them to start creating this number that starts to grow of all these people that are really interested in fields in general. And we don't have that right now. And so I think that speaks volumes when you're asking for money for a study. That's just me. I know at my job, when we ask for new equipment in the medical field that are millions of dollars, we have to show the numbers and the needs and the whys. And I think we should do our due diligence with that and have the names come forward more. However, but we need a platform to send them to. And currently we don't have a place or a home or a base. When I'm out at the grocery store and I talk to parents and I say, yeah, you're all for fields, go to this. Where do I send them? They can read about it, but there's nowhere where they can kind of get the latest, you know, so that's my thought. Thanks.
So Jerry, where did we leave ourselves?
So you're on, I guess you've just got 6.2 there. If there's no more discussion on 6.1. So
our other old business point was discuss how to address the question of prioritizing the proposed fields. I would say that we generally have decided as a group that we kind of broke it more into destinations than particular fields. I think that's pretty much where we had left it the last time we talked about it. So I don't know how much farther we want to go from there. Chad, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my thought is that everybody has asked us what the priorities are, and Bruce has been good at kind of keeping us on task to try to be prepared for those questions. And I agree that we kind of said, okay, it basically just goes down the hill, right? Priority 1 is high school, priority 2 is Sutton Park, priority 3 is Colchester. But just like with the synthetic natural discussion. On some level, right now, I think if the study can go forward, and analyze all three areas, I think we need to know the cost of the big ask, right? And that's when you make the determination. We've identified this is the need, and do you want, it's like asking what's your favorite kid. You're not, you can't just like, no, we're only going to do half. You know what I mean? Like, but we've identified the need. We've figured out a way to meet that need to the best of our abilities. And just on some level, I think if we were to say, okay, we're going to take these two areas as our priority, are we going to limit that study to just those two areas, or do we want to do the study of all three areas? And if we want to do the study of all three areas and the full build out as we've recommended, then on some level, I think this is a discussion that needs to be made down the road when we have cost numbers and there's a reason to pare it back. And I guess right now, without having a budget and kind of a limit to that budget, I don't know if now's the right time to make that determination.
Coach Costa?
I think our representatives from the state government were pretty clear that when they made their presentation, they weren't going to be able to go back to the well many times. So they were really pushing, if you were going to do this, to go all the way. So I think prioritization is kind of premature, and with their encouragement, at least that's what I heard, that going for it all at one point in time was the way to go, at least for getting money on the state level.
Thanks, Coach. So my question would be, as a task force, as a group, would we have a consensus that we should not prioritize what we're looking for, so that we can put it in one package versus breaking it out into some number of packages for the reasons that all of you guys, that everyone has discussed, from observations from our representatives, in our own personal thoughts. So, and then if somewhere down the road it needed to be, then we could go back through it. But it seems to me like the group is more leaning towards one package, if you would. I don't want to speak for the group, but just what I hear. Rachel?
I would say go for the big package. And I think you're going to have to wait till the study comes out for your results. I know the council is asking for a priority because in their mind, I don't think they understood where the town has been individually trying to take care of things and why the package is necessary. So that's the education on the council part, I think, has to happen. And even the public, because they're going to say, well, why don't we just start doing one at a time? Why do we have to do them? Why are we doing this all at once? And why is it such a large dollar amount? So that's the education part that's going to have to be taken care of. And if you get, after you get the study done and you have the big ballpark and it's broken down, it's going to say like, over here is this field and this is about how much it's going to cost to put the synthetic field in over here. Over here is this grass field, the baseball field. This is how much this costs. You can also just make a list basically saying sort of how we feel the priority is. Feel the high school is the first, and then maybe this one, and then Claude Chester. And, you could do that afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that should go with the package plan maybe. But you have to really emphasize it's a package deal. It's not really a priority list. Because like I mean, the town manager said we could fund this and not, financially, we can't just do a referendum right now. Because with the school bonding in the next so many years, there's just not, we just can't do a referendum right now. And he said we could have this 20-year plan. But like I said to the town manager, I'm like, we can't wait 20 years for a baseball field. I mean, that's just, like, how do you wait 20 years to get what, kids, you got to wait. It's in the plan, but it's 20 years out. I mean, you had to have the big package. even if the package gets broken down at some point, maybe half, we do this section here in a big giant chunk, and maybe this section in another 10 years, we try and do this. I get it, but I personally say do it one big ball and then do a little priority and really educate them on the big picture of why it's all together. Thanks.
Frank, as
Yep.
the host here, I don't really have the ability to raise my hand, or at least I don't see where I can.
Oh.
But anyway, I did want to point out something that Chad said to me the other day. We were talking about the reasons he moved to town, and I think we've all heard him say that. But you know, he was also saying, you know, like the life of a kid in sports, it's about 10, maybe 15 years tops. If you wait 10 years, there's a kid in town who's going to be born and is going to be done with their playing days before anything changes. And if that's okay with people, I mean, I just, you know, that puts it in perspective. I mean, there's a whole generation of kids, you know, since in my career here, I mean, there's been 2 generations of kids that haven't had adequate access to, you know, athletic fields. And that to me is, you know, how long do we want to postpone that?
Right.
I like that.
So I guess as far as like that, I think I would just say that our discussion sounds like a consensus from the group that we would prefer a one package deal, and go from there, not prioritize things at this point in time, because in our opinion, it's from what we have learned, it is probably more cost efficient. It'll get done quicker, and piecemealing it is why we're all here today. I mean, we understand what's happened in the past. So I don't know. I don't think our group at this point needs to even, I don't know, discuss prioritization until we get through a cost and the plan on how much each individual thing will cost, and then we'll go from there. My thought. Any other discussion? I don't see any other hands up. Any other thoughts? It's 8:15. I guess if should look at a calendar somewhere. Apologize.
April 15th.
I'm sorry?
I think April 15th looks like it's the 3rd Thursday.
Yes, I would agree. Am I here? I'm going away. I'll be back. So our next scheduled meeting would be April 15th at 7 o'clock. And I guess our action plans from today is that Jerry is going to try to put together a one-page kind of email to send out to all the organizations so that they can get on board and send stuff to on the 25th. And if you could, Jerry just will probably send that to everyone on the committee as well, so that we can spread it as well. Now that information on there also will be who to address it to, Jerry, that type of stuff. So you know, give it to my next door neighbor, and my next door neighbor is moving back to town. He's a physical therapist, so he'll be all about things like this. I love it. But
I might have to miss that meeting on the 15th, but if there is a problem with quorum and you guys have stuff you want to talk about, I could go to another obligation, maybe halftime, and come here first. So just let me know, but I might not be able to make it. So.
Thank you, Portia.
Yep.
Okay, if there's no other comments or discussion, I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Rachel.
Have a good one,
All in
everybody.
favor? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
All right, good job.
Jerry, let's get together.
Hey, so yes, Bruce, go ahead, and I'm in 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
All right, see you at SIFT.
Ooh, that's early.
Fifth.
All right.
I'll be in
Thank
touch.
you, everybody.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
good night.
Have a nice week. Thank you.
bye.